Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Erin, where I teach tips, tools, and tutorials for virtual assistants like you. And if you're new to this channel, I love to talk about training, practical training for virtual assistants, which is why this week we're talking about customer service. So first off, what exactly is customer service? Customer service as a VA is a pretty niche industry. Offering customer service as a virtual assistant is actually a pretty niche skill, and that's because not a ton of people actually know how to do it and do it well. So this week we're going to talk a little bit more about what exactly customer service is, how you can go about offering this for your own clients, and yes, this week's video even comes with a practice component. First of all, when I say customer service, I am talking about you responding to inquiries on a client's behalf, resolving any complaints that they might have coming through, and providing support. Oftentimes, clients who need customer service are typically clients who sell either services or products. So let's just say, for example, a client comes to you with a service. I'm going to pretend that they sell strawberries. They have a farm and they sell strawberries to their people online. So they might need a virtual assistant who can come in and answer emails about their strawberries or the dates of their operation or when they're going to be at a farmer's market. So your role as the customer service agent is really to make sure that their clients feel valued, that you're responding to them in a timely manner, and that you're able to help drive sales, in this case, strawberry sales for your client. Before we get to your practice task, we're going to go through a couple steps about how you can be a better virtual assistant customer service person. So, the first thing you always want to do is create a plan, and you want to do this with your clients. What I like to do first and foremost is ask your clients if they have a script that you can use. Scripts are really handy because they can help you get a better understanding for the phrasing or the terms or the tone that your clients use. Not every client is going to have the same business. A person who sells strawberries is going to be way more casual than a person who sells life insurance. So it's really important for you that you know what kind of product your client is selling or service that they're selling, and then how can you match their tone? Because you, by all intents and purposes, are representing their brand as a VA. So scripts are a really great idea. And if your client does not already have a script that they like to use for like common responses or if somebody asks frequent questions about where they can find their website, if there's no script already available, I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about how you as a VA can write your own. The next thing you want to do with your client is talk about common issues. Ask your client if there are common problems or common questions that they get again and again and again. That's going to help you better understand their product and their messaging, and it's also going to help you better understand what you are going to be expected to do on your client's behalf. And the last thing I want you to do is talk to your client about an escalation plan. There might be times a certain message or a comment or a response from a customer requires your client's direct attention. You, as the VA and the customer support person, you're not going to send every single message to your client to review. That's not why they hired you. They hired you as a VA so that you can take care of the bulk of the messages that are coming in. But you always need to have a plan for if someone's being, I'll just say belligerent, but if somebody's being mean, if they're being hurtful, if they're threatening, if they're exceptionally angry and there's nothing you can do to help kind of calm them down, you want to have a plan for when to escalate so that your client can step in as the business owner. The next thing you need to do is discuss with your client how and when to monitor channels. So, again, depending on your client's service or product, is really going to dictate their channels. For example, the strawberry farmer is probably not going to be on LinkedIn, but they might be on Instagram and TikTok because those are very visual services. Versus the client who is selling life insurance probably isn't on Instagram or doing TikTok videos, but they probably are on LinkedIn or maybe even Facebook. So you really want to talk to your client about the service or product they're selling so that you can figure out what channels they're on and what kind of social media sites you're expected to monitor and be on as well. Another step you really need to do when you're stepping into a customer service role is document all your interactions. Now, this is pretty easy if you're helping monitor channels like Facebook or emails, for example, because any email communication back and forth with their customers is already going to be documented in writing. But if you're monitoring channels on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or something new that I'm sure will come out any day now, it's really important that you at least take some notes so you can be like, hey, I was on Instagram for 2 hours today and you had, a couple customers are worth noting. Or like 10 people that emailed you today were all questioning your website link. So I think we need to make that clear. Documenting your interactions with people are going to help your client better emphasize, like better understand where they need to be driving their business to. Because like now you're the pro, you're the expert who can better give them advice for like, hey, a lot of people don't understand where to go to your website, or a lot of people are not clear about how to call you. Like, let's include a phone number or let's include a WhatsApp number. So you get to be the person that's like boots on the ground and better understands their product and what their customers want. You can better inform your client. And in turn, your client's going to be super happy that they hired you as their customer service person. Now, another thing I want to mention is that for people or businesses that have big sales, like let's just say the strawberry seller is a farmer who has a wild success and has this huge business operation. They're probably using a customer service CRM, that's a customer relations management tool. They're probably using something like Zendesk or Help Scout or Live Agent. These are all really typical CRMs. Zendesk in particular, I've used a couple times. Basically, what this means is that people can write to your client from like all sorts of different channels. They can send emails, they can send messages through Instagram, through Facebook, through Twitter, etc. And everything goes to this one central place called Zendesk. So all you would need to do as the VA, if your client had a service like this, is log into Zendesk and open tickets, which is kind of like open notes that you haven't addressed yet, and you can respond to people in Zendesk. Fortunately, there's so many different services out there that I cannot possibly go through each and every service one by one because I don't know what your client's using. B, they might not use anything at all. And C, I just wanted you to be aware that if your client is using some sort of software, and or bonus tip, if you are interviewing a client and you're like, I can do customer service related work for you as your virtual assistant, you can ask them follow-up questions that will make you sound really, really smart. You can be like, hey, client, do you already use any sort of customer service software like Zendesk or like Live Agent? So it's going to make you feel more knowledgeable too. But if your client is a small time, like your client's selling services, they're an entrepreneur, they're selling something just directly to people through TikTok, they probably don't have a management system, which is where you come in. So I have a prompt for you guys, and here's how this is going to work. I'm going to read you the prompt, and I want you to pause this video and really truly pause the video, because if you're not doing the homework, you're really not helping anyone at all. Because if you just play through this video and then look at the solution after, you might be like, oh yeah, I would have done that myself. But would you? We'll never know because you didn't actually give yourself a chance. So the prompt is, I sell strawberries using Instagram and TikTok, and a lot of customers ask me questions about my produce through those apps. Can you help me? So I want you to pause this video right now and just grab a piece of paper, or if we're being super digital, then open up a new document, open a notes app in your phone, in your computer, whatever it is, and just jot down a couple things that you would do if you were the customer service virtual assistant. So you have this prompt right here. Pause the video, write down the 5 to 10 steps that you would do to be a great customer service agent, and then come back here when you're done and let's compare answers.
A few moments later.
All right, guys, so how'd you do? I really want to know what your customer service virtual assistant plan looks like. Compare it to mine and let's see how you did. So here's what I would do if I was hired today to help a strawberry farmer with their customer service. The first thing I would do is I would ask my client what their goals are, because different goals are going to inform how I behave as the customer service person. So if my client's goals, for example, are to get more traffic to their Instagram and TikTok pages, well, then I would focus heavily more in a marketing role. So I would go through feedback and I would give my client feedback of like, hey, here are the videos that people are responding to. Here are the comments we're getting. People are giving you a lot of comments in your videos about the best time to eat strawberries or how to wash strawberries. So I would do more videos about that. Those goals, by the way, are very different than if your client were like, I want to sell more strawberries. So ask your client what their goals are so that you can better understand what your role as a customer service person is and how you can better pull out the kind of information that they're looking for. Next, I would ask if they had a CRM service. So that's something like Zendesk. And if they don't, then that informs me that as the VA, I need to be involved more heavily in individual social media platforms that they're on. The third thing I would do is I would read through all of their old messages. That could be through emails, that could be through their social media apps, and I would pull out common questions and answers. The reason that you want to look through old messages is twofold. Number one, you want to see if there are common questions that come up again and again and again, because then you can potentially even make like an FAQ for your client. So if people are asking the same questions about strawberries, you can make an FAQ or a fact page about that answers the questions that people ask repeatedly. And the next reason that you want to read through old messages is because you're looking for your client's tone. Like if you can determine that your client, when they answer, is like really funny or loose or casual, or they use emojis a lot, you'll want to match that tone when you take over that job and you start responding to clients. And the reason that's huge is because you don't want your client to feel like, shoot, I hired a VA, they came in and they changed the whole tone of my brand. Like they're really serious and my clients aren't um, responding as well as that. And you just basically don't want your client to feel like you're not representing the brand. So by you matching their tone, by you matching if they're formal, be formal. If they're casual, be casual. If they don't use punctuation, don't use punctuation either. It helps to match so that your client feels like you're totally in tune with them and their brand. The next thing I would do is, as we discussed, I would ask if your client has a script that they like to use to respond to people. And if they say no, well, then part of your job is to read through those old messages and pull out common questions and answers and turn it into a script. That way, when people keep asking you the same questions or make the same comments, you have a script that's like a standard response where you can respond with helpful information. The next thing I would do is relatedly create a common issues and solutions document. So this is going to be your kind of internal FAQ with your client. So if you're creating documentation for them that kind of goes through like, hey, here are the questions that people are always asking about your product or service. Here are the answers that I'd like to propose that I send to them. How does this sound? I think your clients are going to be really thrilled that you're taking initiative by making their customer service part of their business more standard. The next thing you need to do is talk to your client about how often they expect you to check all of their accounts. So if your client is not using one standard CRM like Zendesk and they expect you to be on TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, like they're just everywhere, you guys need to determine together what their expectations are. Because if you don't talk about expectations, your client might be like, oh, my VA clearly is going to be checking my social media 40 times a day. But if you're like, surprise, I have other clients too. I really only planned on checking yours in the morning and night. There's this huge disconnect there. And your clients could be really unhappy because they might feel like messages are going unseen. And they'll be like, why did I even hire you? So it's super, super important that you actually meet with your client and say, hey, how many times would you like me to check your social media? And then if their response is unrealistic, if they're like, well, I expect you to be logged into my Instagram from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., you can push back a little and set those boundaries and be like, you know what? I'm not a full-time employee, but as your assistant, how about I check it at 9 a.m., noon, and 4 p.m., and we'll go from there. So just make sure you guys are on the same page. Next, you definitely need to define when things need to be escalated. So make sure you're talking to your client about like, hey, at what point should I send things to you to respond to, or at what point should I loop you in if there's a problem? So again, it's just about you guys aligning on expectations and goals. Another thing I really want you to consider doing is keep a note and just a running list of what's working well versus what's not working that well. As long as you're making a list and keeping a list for your client of like, you're checking it 3 times a day and you're responding within X number of hours to people's inquiries, people seem really happy. Keep a note just documenting what you're doing for them, what's working well. And if things are not going well, like if people are noticing that your responses are not as detailed as they want it to be, or if they're noticing that you, I don't know, maybe your client wants you to check the social media or their email accounts more frequently. So just document what's happening and then make changes as needed. The best thing about being a customer service virtual assistant is that if something is not working, nothing that you and your client are talking about right now is set in stone. It would make zero sense if you and your client decided that like you would check their accounts 2 times a day, and in a couple of weeks you see that that's not working for customers and they're like irritated that you're not responding to them as quickly as they would expect you to. Make changes. Go back to your client and propose checking it 3 or 4 times. And maybe you checking it 3 or 4 times a day also includes an increase in rate because you're now working a little bit longer or a little bit harder. So changes are good. Changes are a good thing. It means that you're a responsive VA, a proactive VA, and ultimately at the end of the day, that's really what clients want and what they're looking for. So how'd you guys do? Customer service is a bit of a hard one to give you like a practice. So hopefully this prompt was interesting and hopefully you really did pause the video and take some time to think through the different steps for how would you propose a customer service plan if your client hired you to handle their strawberry farm. If you guys enjoyed this video, I have several other practice task videos popping up. The best thing you can do for yourself as a VA is practice, because you're going to do most of your learning on the job and with clients. But my goal here is to help you practice get those kinks out before you actually start working with someone. If you guys have any comments, if you have any questions, let me know how you did in the comments below. I'm super curious to see if this is something that you guys even want to offer for your business. And thank you so much for joining me. I will catch you on next week's video, and thank you for spending your time with me.